Have you ever tried to imagine what it would be like to stand right at the edge of the divine? Not just to believe, but to actually see it with your own eyes? Well, in the book of Exodus, this wasn't just a thought experiment. For a select few, it was real. We're about to dive into an incredible story about a nation's unbreakable promise and a jaw-dropping vision of heaven's floor, a pavement made of pure sapphire. So our story kicks off right at the foot of the massive, imposing Mount Sinai. Moses, he's just come down from the mountain, carrying the very words of God. And as he relays these laws, Exodus chapter 24, verse 3 tells us the people respond with one single voice. It's this powerful, unified declaration. All the words which the Lord hath said will we do. Now you have to understand, this was way more than just a simple yes. This was the very foundation of a nation being laid, a binding promise made right there in the shadow of that holy mountain. And with the people's word given, Moses moves fast to make this sacred pact official. And here's the next crucial step. Exodus chapter 24, verse 4 tells us something really specific. Moses wrote all the words of the Lord. Think about that. This commitment wasn't just going to be left to memory or passed down by word of mouth. Nope. It was immediately put down on paper, creating a physical, tangible contract for this new covenant. But before the ceremony even gets going, God lays down some very clear rules about how to approach him. Exodus chapter 24, verses 1 and 2 lays out this specific hierarchy. Aaron, his sons, and 70 elders, they're invited to come partway up the mountain to worship, but from a distance. The text makes it crystal clear. Moses alone shall come near the Lord. He is the one-of-a-kind intermediary between God and all the people. So this brings us to the ceremony itself. And let me tell you, it is incredibly dramatic. In the ancient world, you didn't seal your most important agreements with a handshake. You did it with a powerful, unforgettable ritual. And this one, it involves an altar, sacrifices, and blood, all deeply symbolic acts to make this covenant absolutely binding. Exodus chapter 24, verses 4 through 8 gives us the play-by-play. First, Moses builds an altar and 12 pillars, one for each of the 12 tribes. Then, young men make the sacrifices. Moses takes half of the blood and sprinkles it on the altar, which represents God's part of the deal. Next, he reads the words of the covenant out loud for everyone to hear. But it's that final act that really, truly seals it. In what has to be one of the most stunning moments, Exodus chapter 24, verse 8 describes how Moses takes the rest of the blood and sprinkles it directly on the people. And he declares, "Behold the blood of the covenant, which the Lord hath made with you." This is so powerful. It's a visual, visceral act that binds both parties, God and Israel, together in this life and death agreement. And you've got to listen closely to how the people respond here, because after this intense ritual, Exodus chapter 24, verse 7, records them saying their vow again, but they add a new crucial word. They don't just promise to do what the Lord said. Now they promise to be obedient. You can almost feel how the sheer weight of this ceremony has deepened their commitment. Okay, so the covenant is now sealed in blood. And right on the heels of that, the story takes a dramatic turn. The leaders of Israel, the ones who had to keep their distance before, are now invited up the mountain for an encounter that I don't think any of them could have ever imagined. Exodus chapter 24, verse 9 tells us that Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders all go up the mountain together. So that's 74 men, and they are about to witness something completely unprecedented, something impossible. What they see it's almost impossible to describe, but Exodus chapter 24, verse 10 gives us this breathtaking detail. It says they saw the God of Israel. Now, the text gives no description of God's face or his form. Instead, it focuses on what was under his feet, something that looked like a pavement made of pure sapphire, as clear and brilliant as the sky itself. Just incredible. And this is what's so shocking. The consistent understanding throughout Scripture is that for any mortal to see God is to die, period. Yet Exodus chapter 24, verse 11, goes out of its way to tell us that God laid not his hand on these leaders. They weren't just spared. They weren't just unharmed. They actually ate and drank in this divine presence. This wasn't a moment of judgment. It was an act of communion. But the journey isn't over. As incredible as this shared vision was, Moses is now called to go even further. He has to go higher, and this time he has to go alone, right into the very heart of God's manifested presence. So Exodus chapter 24, verses 12 through 16, breaks down this final ascent. The Lord calls Moses up to the summit to get the stone tablets, the ones inscribed with the law. So Moses and his aide, Joshua, they head up, leaving Aaron and Hur in charge down below. For 6 straight days, this dense cloud just covers the mountain. And then, on the 7th day, God calls out to Moses from deep inside that cloud. Can you even imagine what the Israelites waiting at the bottom were seeing? Exodus chapter 24, verse 17 gives us their perspective. To them, the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount. They are staring at what looks like an all-consuming inferno, and their leader, Moses, is about to walk right into it. And then, as Exodus chapter 24, verse 18, so simply states, Moses went into the midst of the cloud. He just walks straight into the fire and the glory, and he stays there, on that mountain, for 40 days and 40 nights. And so, this whole incredible chapter leaves us hanging with this one profound question. After sealing a covenant in blood, after seeing a glimpse of heaven itself, Moses walks completely alone into a devouring fire. What happens to a person after an encounter like that? How could anyone possibly be the same after spending 40 days and 40 nights in the very presence of God?